Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
So we should dive in.
Diving in at 6:32. Mike and I know just what to do. We're going to talk for you about a topic that I can't remember, but I know I was told it at some point in time.
You were told it in the last 10 minutes.
In the last 10 minutes.
So tonight's topic...
Don't panic, though.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Tonight's topic is moral panics versus genuine trouble.
Right here in River City.
I know I should get this reference, and I don't.
Trouble starts with T. That rhymes with P. That stands for pool. Got trouble. Right here. Michael Christopher Cole. I've got homework for you, my friend.
I probably know. This sounds so familiar.
Man. It's the number one song in The Music Man.
Oh, I've never seen The Music Man. Just so our viewers are aware, I'm very manic, but sometimes that also means that I'm missing a lot of key pop
musicals that everybody else has seen. Because he's manic, he suddenly hasn't seen
everyone my age has seen The Music Man.
I hope so. Richie Cunningham is in it. Little Opie Cunningham. Yeah. It's one of my favorite moments in Happy Days, actually, is a scene where they're Mr. and Mrs. C are going to see the movie The Music Man, and they're standing outside online, and they're in front of the poster, and there's the picture of Ron Howard, little Ron Howard, and she goes, "Oh, I love this movie." He goes, look at this guy. He reminds me so much of Richie at his age." It's a great breaking the fourth wall kind of moment.
Nice. My grandparents are convinced that Logan looks like him as Opie.
Little Opie Cunningham.
Yeah. So, moral panics versus genuine trouble. So let me start us off by saying like how I came up with this concept topic. Logan and I were talking recently. I'm reading a book. I'm pretty sure it's because of the book I'm reading. I'm reading a book that has to do somewhat with the satanic panic, and so him and I were kind of talking because he's been getting big into reading.
Damn Tom Hanks.
And so, what does that have to do with Tom Hanks?
We'll get to it.
Okay. So so we're talking about it, and I said, yeah, well, the satanic panic was kind of a moral panic, which is a thing that happens. It happens very often, and with groups of parents mostly, but it doesn't have to be parents. And I said, and it is something that's based not really in any kind of real thing that's going on, and people, like, oh, like this, this video game is bad, or this, they get upset about something because they don't really understand the thing.
Tom Hanks. And
Logan says, oh, like how you and Mom don't want me to play Roblox. And I was like, I think that you are applying this correct. So Sarah and I, we let him play Roblox, but we're very strict on how he plays it and what
I would hope so, because the way I don't trust him with a Roblox.
Yeah. So, but Roblox, you know what it is.
I have zero idea. It's like the Music Man to me.
It's a video game. It's a video game that you play online. It's similar to Minecraft, but unlike Minecraft, you can play with other people, but you can also play off on your own.
Oh, it's a pedophile game. I got it. Okay, I'm good.
Exactly. And there is some fucked up shit that goes on that they do to people, that they'll hype up kids. And so Logan calls us out on this, and I was telling Sarah like an hour ago when I was getting ready for recording, I was like, oh yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. And then I told her that Logan called us out on it for Roblox, and she looked at me and we both kind of went, are we being silly with this, or is this a genuine thing? And I'm realizing that like in this particular circumstance, there is a chance that we are overreacting drastically, but I think we have to. Like when it comes to like letting your kid onto a game where they can be talking to anyone, anywhere, potentially, you have to be overprotective. But he called us out on it, and I was like, 10-year-old me would have been like, my mom's fucking stupid. She's not letting me play the game. Like, I know that I would have been in the same boat. I say 10 because I'm not as smart as Logan, so it would take me an extra year and a half. But so that's what kind of led me here. And when he said it, when we had that conversation maybe a week ago, I wrote it down and I was like, oh yeah, we should, because there are moral panics that also, like, there was a bunch that I thought that I learned about as a kid that I'm like, that's stupid. But then there were some where I was like, was that a real thing that happened? Because I don't know.
Tom
And
fucking Hanks.
okay, so why don't you start by
God damn
explaining the Tom Hanks thing, because I don't understand.
So I was the original Dungeons and Dragons generation.
Okay, yes, I know where this is going. But you go ahead and tell the story.
Yeah, so I'm lucky. My parents were hippies, and my dad's a science fiction freak and stuff. So in the summer of '80, I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, which was still really new. I mean, it had been out for a couple of years, kind of underground, but but it wasn't big yet. It was really still a very unknown thing. And I had a friend, to the point where my friends who had it at my summer house did not know how to play it. We played it totally wrong, but I got totally into it. We played it like every night during summer. And my parents, for my 13th birthday in the fall, wanted to get it for me. And they searched New York City high and low, every toy store looking for it. And I told them it uses books. So they checked every bookstore. No one had heard of it, nothing. And they didn't want to tell me they were getting it for me. So they only knew what had come out in conversation while I was playing it. And this, like 2 months later, there's like, I'm not playing it anymore, a month later, whatever. So they're just going to go on memory. Luckily for me, they were at a play in the village and they were killing time before the play. And there was a hobby store that was closed, but in the window was a D&D set and the D&D books. So my dad came back the next day on his lunch break from work and bought everything that existed at the time, which was the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, and the basic set, like that. And that was it. That's what existed. And so that was my bar mitzvah present from my parents. Yay, parents. Over the next year or two, the Satanic Panic hit, and the big part of it was Dungeons and Dragons. And if you watched Stranger Things, was a big thing with that everyone in the schools doesn't trust the kids because they play this demonic game. Never mind the fact that 99.873% of people who played it were playing as good guys, killing the bad monsters. And the game is geared towards being good, especially back then when it was much more basic than it is now. My parents were never like that, but I had friends who could not play it with me. When their parents found out, that's why they were coming to my house, because they didn't trust it. And then came Tom fucking Hanks. There was a TV movie called Mazes and Monsters instead of Dungeons and Dragons. And in that movie, Tom Hanks was like a rich kid who was at like a prep school, and they all played D&D all the time. And he goes crazy. And he thinks he's his character. He thinks he's in the way. He hurts people by accident, thinking that they're monsters and fighting them. And he wanders off New York City, and his friends are trying to figure out where he's going in New York so they can save him, because he's not in his right mind. He's hallucinating because of mazes and monsters. I remember watching it with my older brother. And when they said they realized he's probably going to his parents' house and they're traveling or whatever, so no one will be there. But they say the address, and my brother stops and thinks. My brother spent a lot of time in Manhattan. And he goes, that address would be in the East River. He's going to drown himself. I think they were just smartly using an address that doesn't exist, so nobody would show up at some poor person's house, or not poor person, rich person, because it was like on the Upper West Side. And then at the end of the movie, I'm going to spoil a 40-year-old movie. At the end of the movie, they go to visit him, and he's much better and he's much calmer. Like he's out by a lake and he's really cool, and he sees them and he goes, "Oh, Michaelis, great Zoran, you're here. I was worried about you." And they look at each other and realize, oh, he's just totally gone now. He's calm, but he's totally gone. And they're like, "Yes, we're here with you to hunt the demons." And they're going to walk off, like humoring him because his brain is gone. And so many people, like, it was based on a true story. To everyone I knew who didn't play Dungeons and Dragons, thought it was based on a true story, that someone went crazy like that. And that played into people hating Dungeons and Dragons so much. And it wasn't even D&D. It was Mazes and Monsters. It was M&M. Completely different story. Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that happens, right? They do a fictional story about a thing, and people say, well, that could be true, probably based on a true story. And just that, and then it takes off that people, I know somebody it happened to. everybody knows somebody it happened to because they saw it. They're eating cats and dogs. They saw it on TV.
Yeah, or they've got litter boxes because kids identify as animals.
Well, yeah, that's weird you'd say that because my son just walked in the room.
Oh my god. Which one is that, Joseph or Jacob?
It was Joseph.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, that I it's funny that we talk that like the idea of the satanic panic or moral panics is interesting to me because I think that I was very much in a community that fell for them while not being aware of the concept till I was like in my 20s. Like I think that we watched some documentary in religion class in high school called Hell's Bells.
I feel like you should sing that, not say it.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Hell's Bells.
Yeah, it's not the AC/DC one.
Oh,
it was. I'm not even sure what I don't remember. I just know that my friends from high school reference it every once in a while as like a stupid piece of propaganda we had to watch. But yeah. But I remember my mom, my parents would fall for some of it, but it would be way less of the Hell's Bells, the dangers of rock and roll. But the stuff that my parents fell for was, I would say, less ridiculous. So not to say it wasn't ridiculous, but it was less ridiculous. So my dad didn't want us watching South Park because it was inappropriate.
Well, I don't think that's a panic. I think that's a good parenting decision.
Right? Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was 13 or 14.
Okay.
So it's getting
less of a
there.
Good decision, but still not a bad decision.
Yeah. So my parents were on the verge of, but I also don't know that there was a true moral panic during my like formative years. I think that like I fell between
video
moral
games
panics.
was probably a big one when you were young, but you were too young to be playing those video games.
Right. Yeah, when I was young, I remember there being a lot about Mortal Kombat, but my parents were like, "You're 10, you don't need to play Mortal Kombat." And so, so I missed all of the like the classics like the Satanic Panic and all those 80s ones. And then I think that a lot of the ones that had kind of came out that we heard about would have been around the time I was starting college. Like, have you heard about the lipstick parties?
Yes.
I don't know what the actual time frame on those lipstick parties was, like when that was. My Google's gonna, my search history is going to be crazy tonight. He looked up Hell's Bells and lipstick parties. But so I didn't hear about lipstick parties till I was in my 20s, and
the early 2000s is when the urban legend was spreading.
2000.
The early 2000s.
Okay. So yeah, in 2000 I was 16 years old, and I don't think my parents were worried that I was going to parties where they were giving blowjobs out like candy. Anyway, for listeners, which I think
the middle school version of it was hickeys, and it was how many different color lipstick you had for hickeys. The high school version was getting blowjobs, and it was how much lipstick you had from blowjobs.
Yeah, you get a rainbow on your dick. Yeah.
Whatever color your mom was wearing last night.
Yeah. So I do remember when I heard about rainbow parties, I think I was already dating Sarah the first time I heard about it.
First time
and
she
I was
invited
listening
you to one.
I was listening to Cracked. They were talking about them, and they were like, there's literally no evidence that this ever happened once. I think that's a big thing with a lot of those moral panics is the idea that like sometimes they are, I don't know if it's a fantasy somebody had that then becomes like this is what's going on or what, but like there's a lot of times where I think it's not like a thing that's being overblown that like, oh yeah, this has happened a few times and we're blowing it out of proportion. It's like these things are like demons possessing you if you play Dungeons and Dragons. It never happened, not even once. but like you hear about it as if like
That
this is.
no demons possessed anyone? Really, none.
Well, I would think that you would agree with me on that, being that we don't believe in demons.
Oh, yes, that's true.
But like, so I think that like the moral panics become like it's a thing that like, oh, this never happened, and
Yeah,
we're going to treat it as if it's a pandemic.
yeah, and I think people like to be able to blame something and have something to fight against, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
in a way, those some of these moral panics are better than the alternatives, because like right now we're in the middle of an immigration moral panic, right? And people blaming
Sure.
immigrants for everything, and that's a horrible one because people are being affected by that. At least the D&D one, it was the potential profit of a small company that made it through and survived it, you know, like, but it
Yeah.
wasn't, you know, people, you know, anti-Semitism is hugely on the rise right now because of what's going on in Gaza, and somehow people think that the average Jewish person in America has control over Netanyahu's policies. You know,
Well, if you control the media, how?
only the U.S. media. We don't control the Israeli media. I mean, I guess technically they do, but it's a different group. It's a different
if anything,
division.
that's exactly where they control the media.
It's a different division, though.
Yeah.
And I just point out, you know, Al Jazeera's out there too, and guess, you know, we don't control that one.
I think that you say that, you know, sometimes it's better than others
because we're always looking for something to blame. So
right.
if
So
it's
like
an esoteric,
Maybelline,
maybe pretend thing, that's better than it being a real thing.
yeah.
Except when real people get affected, because like when they were saying that, you know, there were satanic rituals and, you know, and sexually assaulting children and then repressed memories, all that panic, people lost their careers and got jailed over made up things during that.
Yeah. Well, with the rainbow parties, like Maybelline may have taken a major hit in
Where sales went up. I got to be ready in case I'm invited to a party.
Maybe she's porn with it.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
I think there's I feel like right now we're in like a moral panic heyday, because you've got the immigrants moral panic. You've got and I think even
hurricanes
though
are controlled moral panic.
Huh?
The whole Marjorie Taylor Greene, every tweet she sends, moral panic. Oh,
yeah.
You know, forest fires are lasers in space. Hurricanes are there. They are controlling it. They means the Jews, everybody. In case you didn't know, they is the Jews.
Yeah.
You know, there's a panic about everything. And of course, the whole Donald Trump's entire campaign is built on election panic.
Well, yeah. And so, I mean, I think, okay, to Jewish space lasers and forest fires for a second, that's a conspiracy theory. And I kind of think while there's a lot of overlap, I don't think the average person is, like, the average mom isn't like, oh, or like the average person's not like, oh, you know, the Jews have a space laser.
It's not all the Jews, it's just the Rothschilds.
Okay.
Just happens to be they're Jewish. I don't think that's why they own the space laser. It's a coincidence.
And but I was gonna say, but I think that like some of the other Illuminati or deep state or that shit is a moral panic too. Like when you get, what was the Sound of Freedom? Is that the name of that movie?
Yeah.
Where you start getting into like
thing.
all the trafficking. That the trafficking
and then it turns
is a
out
moral
the producers
panic.
of the movies are guilty of
and you get people walking into, you know, Pizzagate and all these other things. I think like so like that's why I say they overlap, because those are conspiracy theories that are also moral panics. But you know, there's nobody like driving up to space and being like, "Where's the space lasers? I want to disarm
Thanos."
So like there, you know, some of these things are, you know, when we had Sub on a year and a half, 2 years ago, we talked about the pigeons because she loves that particular conspiracy theory. Nobody's walking in the FBI office, as far as I know, being like, why are there pigeons in my, you know, like, whereas if it's something that has to do with trafficking, sex trafficking, or
I think some moral
pedophilia,
panics aren't as dangerous as others because there's no people attached to them who can get harmed.
True. I thought that maybe we should clarify, but yeah, you're right. Like that's a good way of doing it instead of saying conspiracy theory versus, because they largely it is a conspiracy theory.
Well, I mean, I think it's fair. It's a fair statement that the Marjorie Taylor Greene things start as are conspiracy theories, but some of them take hold and build bigger, or they it's that, well, maybe that's not true, but they do something, you know.
Well, and that I think is a good point. That's a good
I mean, you go to an average Trump
piece.
rally and people will say that they are doing something. It's not a
Yes.
coincidence that the hurricane. I mean, a lot of people were saying the hurricane hit North Carolina for a reason. It was to affect the election. It was to get the lithium mines. It was, things, sometimes contradictory reasons people believe at the same time. But
so I think, there's a Venn diagram. There's a lot of overlap between conspiracy theory and moral panic. And what you're describing, as far as like, okay, maybe that detail's not true, but overall there's something bad going on here, is a moral panic piece, I think, more than a conspiracy theory piece.
It reminds me of my old buddy Adam and his crazy girlfriend. We'll say crazy ex-girlfriend now because it's not his current partner. She once upon a time, she freaked out on him because she found a woman's shirt in their laundry. Freaked out on him. And she's so mad. And he's like, I have no idea. I have no idea. Are you sure it's not yours?
The 1980s is calling about the satanic panic.
Sorry, my phone's on Do Not Disturb, but my family can get through my Do Not Disturb, and it was my brother. Because when my dad was sick, I've been letting my family get through my Do Not Disturb.
No problem. Just the ring sounds like it's from 1980s. So.
Yeah. So I recognize it as a phone. What exactly was that in the middle of the night? Let's again reset.
Adam and his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend.
So my buddy Adam, his crazy girlfriend, finds a woman's T-shirt in their mixed laundry. They live together. He's like, I have no idea. He's swearing up and down. He has no idea who she is. She is so pissed about it. She's not talking to him. And then she's talking to her sister. And her sister goes, wait, is it the pink one with yellow frills? Whatever. And she's like, yeah. I've been looking for that since I stayed with you guys. I must have left it behind. Okay, so no problem. Boom. Adam has a big mug he keeps at work. Like this mug. I'll turn around. So it's very large, right? He uses it for breakfast cereal, like at work, like in the mornings. He like go to the cafeteria and grab cereal. He brings it home to wash it, and she finds it in the dishwasher. Freaks out. This isn't ours. Who left this here? And it's like, nobody. It's from work. And she's so mad at him. And then something else random happened. She's mad at, and when she goes through the list of things he's done that's suspicious. Remember that shirt that was here? Remember that mug? And it's like, the shirt was your sister's, but still it counts as something he did suspicious because, so it's like, so you get the same thing, that feel of they are controlling everything. Like, you mean the space lasers and the weather? Well, no, not those per se, but where there's smoke, there's fire. So they may not do those things, but they're doing something. And it's like, but your two examples, are fake.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make a difference.
Yep. Yeah.
I've
definitely dealt with
placement for Captiva Marketing in St. Louis, Missouri. Captiva Marketing for all your digital marketing needs.
Yeah. That's not the same Adam I know from Scotland, right?
No, not Scottish Adam. This is North Carolina Adam.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, and Adam was probably cheating on her. We'll just say that right away. But those were not evidence of it.
Yeah. My dad, when I was a kid, my dad used to get really frustrated, not with me but with on the news, when somebody would get caught doing something, and they'd be like, I wasn't doing that thing. And he'd be like, no, but you break the law all the fucking time. You get caught once doing, you get accidentally caught doing something that wasn't really what it looks like, and then you're like, I'm innocent. And it's like, no, you're, and he I remember he used to get so pissed at it when he would see it in something and be like, no, you deserve to get punished.
Yeah, but the problem is when the person maybe did nothing and you just suspected them 5 times, doesn't mean that they were guilty of any of those things you suspected.
No, that's true.
It's like the guy who he and his buddies stumble out of a strip club, and the guy's covered in lipstick all over him from kisses and glitter. And the other guy goes, oh, mate, you're dead. Your wife's going to kill you. And he's like, nah, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. He goes, she's going to kill you. He goes, nah, I'll be fine. And they're walking, and they goes, come here for a second. They duck into a pool hall, and he grabs the chalk from the pool, and he puts it on his hands and puts his hands like that. And he scrapes a little on his pants. And he goes, that's not going to get rid of the glitter. He's like, I'm fine. Gets home, and his wife's like, where were you? And he goes, I was at a strip club. The girls were all over me. Look at all the lipstick. Look at all the glitter. And she grabs his hands and goes, look at the chalk. You bastard. You were out playing pool again.
Nice. So I got a good one. So this guy is drunk at a bar, and he pukes all down his dress shirt after work. And he's like, "Oh shit, you've heard this one before or no?"
No, you keep telling that joke.
Okay. So he says to the bartender, he goes, "Oh fuck." He goes, "I'm my wife's gonna kill me because I wasn't supposed to, get drunk, and now I've puked over myself." And the bartender says, "You gotta go to the ATM or whatever, get a $10 bill. When she asks what happened, you say a guy puked on me, and he gave me $10 bill to take care of the dry cleaning."
Smart move.
And so the guy goes home, and he's still shit faced, and his wife is like, "Why do you have puke down your shirt?" And he goes, "A guy puked on me and gave me money for dry cleaning, and by the way, he also shit my pants." I love that joke. I told that joke to Logan, and Logan used to tell that joke, which was hilarious, like a year ago.
Yeah, the joke about the three guys talking about how drunk they got over the weekend at work on Monday. The first guy was so drunk that I crashed my car on the way home. Like, oh man, it's terrible. And this guy was nothing. I'm so drunk. I put my car into the lake and I just slept on the shore the whole night. And they go, oh man, that's terrible. And the third guy goes, no, you guys don't know anything. Man, I got so drunk. I went home and I blew Chunks. And they're like, that's no big deal. He goes, no man, Chunks is my dog.
I was like, who's Chunks? I remember being in I was probably Logan's age, maybe a little. I think it was third grade, and the big dirty joke.
Fucking drunk.
No, the dirty joke that we used to tell was, you want to hear a clean joke? A man was in the bath with Bubbles. Want to hear a dirty joke? Bubbles was his next door neighbor. And
I thought it was you want to hear a dirty joke? A boy fell in the mud. You want to hear a clean joke? He took a shower. We were purer than you in my day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. New York City, New York people were pure. It's only because of age, not because of.
Yeah, in my day. I said my day. I didn't say my place.
I mean, you also got to keep in mind, so third grade is the. Oh my god, I got to tell you this because I've been. Sarah thinks I'm crazy. Actually, she didn't think I was that crazy. Her dad thought I was crazy, but because they were like, her and her dad were talking to Logan. They're like, third grade's a great year. It's like such a great year. I'm like, third grade's when I learned was where I started learning all the bad shit. And her dad said to me, her dad's 65, and he was like, you started learning bad stuff in third grade? I'm like, yes. And he's like, what kind? I'm like, that's when I started learning about sex from kids at school. And he's like, I think that's just a you thing, Mike. I don't think that's. I'm like, well, you also got to keep in mind that when you were in third grade in 1970 or whatever, 69, whatever, there wasn't easily accessible pornography. When I was in third grade, people's dads had pornography, VHSs of pornography. So I came into school. I'm Logan's age, maybe I was old. I was a year older than Logan when I was in third grade, and I came into school one day, and this kid that I was friends with was like, my dad has a video, and a guy stuck his penis into a woman's vagina, and then it got stuck, and he couldn't get it out, and he kept pulling, trying to get it out, and he couldn't get it out. And I was like, why would he do that? That is so fucking stupid. I wasn't saying fucking in third grade, but I was like, that's so stupid. Why would it?
It is literally fucking stupid, though. Literally is.
But yeah, that was third grade that I learned that, and then a different kid called me a homo in third grade, and I went home and I was like, Mom, what's a homo? She's like, that's a boy who likes other boys. And I was like, oh,
I like boys.
I was like, then I'm a homo. And she's like, no, wants to kiss other boys. And I'm like, then I'm not a homo.
It's like the high school girl who comes home and goes, Dad, what's vice? And he's like, well, it involves drugs and sex, and it's sex for money. And why do you want to know? I just got made vice captain of the cheerleading squad.
Nice. How are you sending shit this quickly?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You do know what I'm talking about. Alex isn't sending this. Alex wasn't born in 1976.
So, okay, podcast listeners and video watchers. While Mike was talking about third grade, I sent him my third grade class photo to see how things looked in the 70s
Trying to
in
figure out
third
which
grade.
one's you.
Then I figured you'd be looking to see which one was me.
Last week of third grade was a really big deal because the last week of third grade was interrupted by nobody on earth talking about anything but the fact that O.J. Simpson had killed his wife.
It kills me because I was at Glaxo already at that point.
Yeah, were you? Damn.
I was at Glaxo. I was still in R&D. I wasn't in editorial. I wasn't doing marketing stuff yet. But I remember that, us talking about one of my coworkers, her sister lived in RTP, like not far from Glaxo. And it's funny because she worked at Burroughs Wellcome, which later, when we merged, me and her sister were in the same department. And I only knew her by her family nickname, which was Bitsy. And I'm like, Bitsy, it's so good to see you. And she's like, nobody knows that name. Like, because that's like not the name that anybody else in real life, not her real name. It's just her family name, but it's what her sister always called her. Her name was like Mary or something like that. I think it was Mary. And, but we talked about going to her house to watch the trial results because there was no internet back then to check,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, this wasn't the trial. Like, he killed both of them on June 12th. I just Googled it, which was like literally like the last week of school. So
yeah, I remember I was watching. I think the Knicks were in the playoffs, and I was watching the playoff game, and they cut away at first to show the white Bronco chase scene, and then that was in the corner of the screen during the basketball game. Like the rest, because it was so long, like the next hour or whatever it was. I mean, it seems like forever. It was in the corner of the screen, and my girlfriend was performing fellatio on me while I watched a basketball game and the greatest car chase of all time.
So moral panics. What is your favorite moral panic?
Like I say, D&D is the one that affected me the most because while my parents thankfully didn't fall for it, I had friends literally who were not allowed to come to my house because I played D&D.
Yeah.
Friends in the Poconos like that we used to play at night. So Steven wasn't allowed to hang out with us at night because we played D&D at night down by the lake. He can hang out during the day because we just hung out at the pool most of the time.
Well, and everybody knows demons allergic to the sun.
Yeah, I don't know that his parents, I mean, they were Catholics. I don't know. I don't know if they were crazy enough to think that it would be possession as much as just was inappropriate to be playing a game because it glorified evil and monsters and things. I don't think she was afraid for his immortal soul for being possessed, more that it was sinful to play the game because the game itself was not understanding that we play the good guys in the game, but the fact we're using magic and that stuff. I think it was more the game is an inappropriate game for their level of moral panic.
You may be right, but I think
I'm not saying for Stephen. I'm not saying for other people it wasn't that. But
I was going to say for Catholics, I think Catholics were genuinely concerned about like the demon part of things, as opposed to Protestants being like, well, you just shouldn't do that. You shouldn't, But
and I didn't say Stephen's last name, so I'll go ahead and say that his father was later arrested for inappropriate kid stuff. So it's always funny that people who don't want you doing stuff that's wrong, it's because of a guilty conscience because they do stuff that's wrong.
Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's gullibility. I think.
No, it's. I would do evil shit. I do evil things, so I believe everyone's doing evil things, and this is the one I think you're doing that's evil.
I think that you are right on a significant part of the time, but I think that there are
98.732. I just looked it up. 98.732% of the time. That's what it is.
You are very quick on the trigger tonight, so I don't doubt that you looked that up.
I looked. How often does someone blame you because they're doing evil things? Sorry, that was Republican Party that came up. So that was right.
Yeah.
With Donald Trump, 100% of the time that he says something about someone, it's because it's what he does, did, or will do.
It's called projection.
I want to know how many fucking cats he ate. I want to know how many cats he ate.
The one thing that I feel like, and this is more of a long-lasting moral panic, the one, and I don't remember because I was not into it, so I don't remember it being a big deal, but I do remember people mentioning it, and including like I think my mom when I was a kid, but Ouija boards. Yeah, I feel like Ouija boards is like maybe the longest lasting moral panic of, and like ultimately, the big problem with Ouija boards is like the big problem with Monopoly, which is it's not
It's made by
really
Parker
fun.
Brothers.
It's not really fun, and someone's always kind of fucking somebody else over in it. But
yeah, well, I'll say Monopoly. I don't want to go off on the Monopoly tangent, but the game was designed to teach you that capitalism is unfair and doesn't work. Like that was the goal of Monopoly, and Parker Brothers bought it, tweaked it a little bit, missed the irony of it, and made millions of dollars.
Probably billions at this point.
So, a cool thing about Moral Panics?
Yeah.
As our friend Aaron says, when you go down and dig in, you scratch the surface of any conspiracy theory, and it's the Jews, right? Is who they're blaming. The term moral panic was coined by a Jewish guy named Stanley Cohen. Stanley Cohen. I mean, Cohen, nice Jewish name. He was a 1972 book he wrote about British moral panics. It wasn't, it was 1972. It wasn't even our stuff. And I think it's funny, like moral panic. So it usually these days blames the Jews, and it was actually the term was coined by a Jewish scientist.
Yeah. So what was Stan Lee's real name? Because
Leibowitz, Stanley Leibowitz.
Oh, Lieber.
Lieber. I don't know those two names.
I was like,
so Stan Lee.
Yeah. I thought he just did Stan Lee because it was Stanley.
I mean, kind of both, right? It was Stanley, but it was also Stanley.
That's why I was like, I thought you were gonna like say, oh, it was actually
that man, Stanley. No, I'm serious. It was written by a guy who wrote a book. His thing was about like mods and rockers in the '60s and how people thought that they were all drug addicts and all their stuff. Moral panic that time was, but he set up like the standard for what it is, like step by step. What's a moral panic?
Yeah, and I feel like. So I'm reading the book that I'm reading right now is called, and I'm going to fuck up the title. It's called The Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying. And it takes place in like starts off in the early 80s or late 80s, but it within like a chapter or two, you're in the early 90s. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying. It's a satirical horror book, and I'm reading it, and they're talking about different like different types of books that they're reading. So they start off reading like very classical shit, and then they kind of all get bored, so they start reading basically the equivalent of like moms read or listening to murder podcasts. Now they're reading books about murder, so they read like Helter Skelter and a bunch of that shit in it, and they're like those hippies, and like it takes place in Charleston, South Carolina in like 1991, and so it's literally like they're like the dirty hippies came in and they were and it's very much moral panic specific, like that mentality of like, yeah, there was the Manson family, and I'm sure there was other bad hippies, but the idea that there is like some inherent like badness, and the fact that people still believe that in the 90s about hippies is crazy to me. Actually, we were talking about before we got on the thing, but Forrest Gump largely makes hippies seem like the bad guys in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, they clearly punished Jenny for being openly sex positive by making her get HIV.
Yeah.
In a time period when heterosexual women were not really getting HIV that often. It was like a highly unlikely thing for her to have got HIV in that time period she did in that story.
Yeah, and she does not in the book, apparently, from what the
universe. Just like, threw it in there.
Basically, so I watched a thing today about Forrest Gump, the movie, and the woman that was talking about it read the book as well, and she said that like Jenny and Forrest are very, very different characters than they are in the book, because they made Forrest kind of like everything pure, and in the book he was a more natural human being, and they gave all of his a lot of his flaws to Jenny. So like Forrest does have sex with other people, and he's not like necessarily a jerk about it, but he does.
He's a guy. He's a regular guy.
And he swears, and he apparently has little bits of racism after being in Vietnam, and like he's a much more realistic character.
Bubba being his best friend instantly, and he's got
yeah.
It's interesting. It's funny is I I think a lot of the charm of the movie is because, if you've ever heard the story Tom Hanks that he tells about when Zemeckis, your friend, tried to told him, you need to get this kid who's playing young you to talk the way you want Forrest to talk so you can do the character consistently. And he's like 7 or 8 years old. I'll just talk like him. So Tom Hanks spent time with this kid from Mississippi, and that was the kid's accent. So he picked up the accent, but having that accent as an adult kind of gave him the sense of childhood and purity and sweetness. Like the character was very defined by the accent that Tom Hanks took from the younger actor.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. But it's apparently a wildly different thing, and apparently it refused to take a stand on like Vietnam and a bunch of other things. But I don't. I still. I want to.
It had a little bit of a stand. I mean, Lieutenant Dan's character change after being injured in the war was kind of an anti-Vietnam statement.
And then his life gets better when he finds Jesus.
Forrest was too pure, right? But well, also he was full of racism and anger, but then he eventually marries an Asian woman, so he comes full cycle.
One of my favorite lines, though, is when it's New Year's. I don't know how you said you saw the movie one time.
Yeah, I saw the movie when it came out. Okay. Maybe I saw it on cable or something like that one time afterwards, but it's been decades.
They're in Lieutenant Dan's apartment in New York, and or maybe they're in the hooker's apartment or whatever in New York, and there's something on the TV. It's New Year's, and Lieutenant Dan says, "God is listening. Kiss my crippled ass."
I don't even remember that scene. I don't remember them being in New York together.
Oh yeah, and then one of the women.
I just remember Lieutenant Dan showing up at Bubba's shrimp boat, ready to help out on the shrimp boat. That's the only post-war thing I remember.
No, and then in that same scene, showing up later, one of the women kisses Forrest, and he kind of like pushes her away, and the two women start making fun of him for being Arsler and Lieutenant Dan for being crippled, and they leave, and Lieutenant Dan's pissed, and Forrest goes, "She tasted like cigarettes."
First girl I ever made out with tasted like cigarettes. She had made a comment about she was smoking. We were hanging out, and she goes, "I hate kissing people who smoke because they taste like ashtrays." And then she crushed out, and she goes, "But I don't mind being kissed after I've been smoking." I'm like, "Oh, I guess that's my cue that I get to make out with her," and I did.
Nice. That was 1973 when you were 6 years old.
No, that was 1980 or 81. I was like 14, or it was like 81, I think. That really made out. It wasn't just a kid. Yeah, but it was probably because she was a very aggressive young lady. It's like saying that was the first time I made out because she was like, "I don't mind being kissed." Like, I guess we're gonna kiss now.
Yep. There's this is like slightly topic adjacent. There's some weird shit that we as a culture, as a society, have kind of like deemed odd or inappropriate with, and so like sitting, like I remember in one of my favorite movies of all time, Back to the Future, never sat in a parked car with a boy and I just think that there's like I get it. There are things that happen.
I had oral sex with a girl in like the back of my parents' minivan at a music festival. Like we went up looking for something, went up to the car, and I said, "Hey, well, while we're here in the car in the parking lot where nobody is because everybody's at, it's a weekend long thing, so our car's just in a lot." Well, I pulled her in the car and we were messing around, and she's like, "I don't usually park with boys, but I guess this is different." Like, yeah, we're not parking. We're just using a place where no one can find us so that I can go down on you for a while and you can go down on me. That's different than parking. But it was funny that she didn't have a problem with us going down on each other. It was doing it in a car felt like it was being parked in a car with a boy. Like that was where she had an issue.
Yep. And I think about that too. Like the thing that it's slightly parallel is the idea of being in a room with the door closed. So like that wasn't a thing. Like I never like experienced that. Like really.
I very much didn't with my hippie parents. They were like, "Oh, so and so staying over. Bring her bags down to your room." Like,
But we see it on TV a lot. So maybe it happens, or maybe it was just I was a loser and your parents were cool.
My parents
maybe
were hippies. I mean, they definitely were.
So it could be
they
a
also
real thing that people.
My mother underestimated at what age I lost my virginity and who I was sleeping with.
Yeah.
Like she figured we would be messing around and making out, so we're going to sneak around to go, all night anyway. So why not let her stay in the extra bed in my room because make it easier, not realizing that we had already been sleeping together.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that I always laugh when we're watching a show and they're like, don't close the door, and then like later on, it'll be a girl and she'll have a friend over that's a girl, and you're like, well, the character is clearly lesbian and the parents don't know. And like,
I think that's an intentional joke in a lot of the things. The
parents
are so caught up in what they're afraid of, they miss the reality of what's going on around them.
Right. And I think that's probably like a true thing that happens. Personally, so I look at it from two different minds. One is I'm not sure that I'm going to be like that anyway with when Logan gets that age, whether it's a boy or a girl. But I also look at it as like, okay, well, there's very little chance of accidental pregnancy when it's same sex. There's no chance, but like there's you know what I'm saying?
Very little chance.
Very little chance that you're like that's. I've always kind of been like, oh, if I have a gay son or a lesbian daughter, but it does happen occasionally because you experiment and you try something that might not be your thing.
Yeah, but probably not with another person.
True. That's why I said.
Yeah. But my bigger concern, like when one of my boys started dating for the first time, he was 16 and the girl he was dating was 15. In North Carolina, for those who don't know, 16 is the age of consent. So I was like, just so you know, nothing below the waist. There's nothing going to happen between you guys below the waist ever. Until her 16th birthday. And she was definitely the aggressor. Like she told him we're dating now, and she was, had dated other guys where he had not dated other girls. I'm like, I don't care what she's done before, what she wants to. I don't care in any way, shape, or form. Like I don't fault her for it, and I don't celebrate for it. I'm just saying it doesn't make it okay because you're the one who goes to jail. And I had a friend who went to jail for statutory rape. I mean, his story is amazing. I don't know. We don't have time. It's been an hour already, but his story is amazing. Amazing. So when we talk about statutory rape and then marrying the girl's mother, we'll talk about him because it's an amazing story.
We talk too much about statutory rape on this channel.
I know. I'm hoping to try to get through to you before it's too late.
She was 22 when I met her, and she's 36 now. We are fine. I know that there was a time in our lives if we had met and had sex that Sarah and I would have, but
That's funny because Madhavi is like 6 months younger than me, whatever, and I think that's the average age younger than me that any girl I'd ever been with was. Like it was all people in my grade, or in college with me. When after that, it was never anyone more than a year younger than me ever. I don't think even ever.
I dated a woman that was 6 months younger than Sarah. So that's the youngest I had gone. She would have been 19 or 20, and I was 24, I think.
Oh, well, I did have this one girlfriend in high school when I was working at Glaxo, and
and then
that's a joke, everybody. It's comedy.
I meant age gap wise. She, that was the biggest.
Yeah, she had a gap.
Yeah, and then
she worked at the Gap on weekends. Actually,
Jesus Christ,
she had her working paper, so she was allowed to.
Yeah, and then most of the women I dated were about a year older than me. But I'm not dating women in their fucking 40s, so that had to stop. Once 4 years from now, when Sarah hits 40, I'm gonna be like, nah,
no, not dating you anymore. I mean, I'll stay married to you, but we're not going on dates. We're getting takeout.
I love going on dates with Sarah.
So do I.
Like at a certain point, we started day dates, like because Logan would be at school or daycare, and we would go get lunch, and like we would make we would go for like a 2 or 3 hour like a fancy lunch. Like my birthday one year before I started at my current job, we went and had like a date, and dating your spouse is an important thing. It's something that I actually think we should do as a topic sometime.
When we worked at different companies, but both worked in RTP, we used to meet for lunch all the time. So it was like little dates. And then our joke used to be we should take off our wedding rings like while we're at, like one of us shouldn't wear a wedding ring. See if anyone notices.
Sarah has met me at work or at a restaurant near work so that we could have lunch together sometimes. And for a little while, when I would sit down at the restaurant, I'd be like, I hope your husband doesn't find out about me. And she would just roll her eyes.
Yeah, we used to do that in restaurants all the time. Those kind of conversations if we thought people were eavesdropping.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a good place to wrap it up, because that'll be a future topic.
Yes. Do you have anything left to say about this topic?
No, but it's those darn people who are afraid of people listening to podcasts that get me,
Yeah.
That's why our numbers are low.
Before we do all of the things, I do want to say that I recently started a Substack, and I would love it if you guys would go on and follow that.
Which led to my wife saying, "How many Instagrams does Mike have?"
Well, first of all, they're a different one for every project.
That's what I said.
The new Instagram is because my Instagram is private, so because I put pictures of Logan on there. So the one that you guys would have just seen get added, that it looks like it's me personally, is my writer's account.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
I know that I'm like a fucking crazy person. I'm also manic. Remember, I've been like.
No, anyway. What's funny though is, I mean, I have equal amount of social media things because I got one for this puppet, one for that puppet, one for the cooking channel, one for me and my brothers. So I've got equal amount of things. It's not like I don't. So it's just
Yeah, it's not our fault.
You do it, it's weird.
It's not our fault that Madhavi is doing important shit and only has one account. Yeah. So if you all, I'll put it in the show notes. But if you want to check it out, it's mostly going to be fiction, fiction, and maybe a little bit of telling stories about writing or about life stuff. And it's michaelchristophercole.substack.com. And I starting things off by sharing and slowly getting updated on Matthew's favorite of my stories that he was irritated that I didn't finish
because I read it 6 years ago and I caught up to where he was up to, and it's been 6 years and there hasn't been another chapter.
Well,
and now it's weird because now I've met Sam and she's a character, or there's a version of her that's a character in the story. So it's weird that I actually have she doesn't look anything like the Sam in the story. This is the one I had in my head because I can see people in my head.
Well, fucking show off. Anyway, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe
and comment. It likes when people comment.
Yeah. We have a couple people who comment, and they're our favorites.
Yeah, I see you, Cherry Butt. I see you there. We're getting ready to comment. Go ahead.
Yep. And then if you are listening to this on any of the other podcast platforms, give us 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever they allow you to do.
5 out of 7 stars. We're perfect.
Write a review. Whatever the deal is, that would be great. If for some reason you wanted to support us in a financial way, you could do that by going to you can do that by going to patreon.com/talk, talking about the big stuff. And that's a great way to support us, which
give us money.
Yeah, but we appreciate anything you do for us, so just keep that in mind. All right, Matthew, you got any last thought?
I just so we want to thank you guys for sticking with us to talk about the big stuff. And even though we were talking about the 70s, I'm proud that you guys did not panic at the disco.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. It's just the beginning. If you have thoughts or questions or topics you'd like us to tackle in a future episode, drop us a line on our social media channels. Engage with this video when you are now watching it as a VOD on YouTube. Send us an email. We love hearing from our listeners, bringing us topics, because if you leave it up to the 3 of us, we're going to eventually be talking about underwater basket weaving. So we would appreciate you guys reaching out a little bit. Don't forget to subscribe to Talking About the Big Stuff on your favorite platform. Give us a 5-star rating. Engage with it. Criticize us. We need to grow and be better, and you're going to help us be there. You're going to help us get to that point. It really helps us more to reach out and also to keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more big ideas and more thought-provoking discussions. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep talking about the big stuff.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.